up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of A24, the podcast that takes a look at the A24 library 24 minutes at a time. I am Ethan Simi.
And I'm Ben Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we're taking a break from our student film to talk about Joanna Hogg's 2019 film, The Souvenir.
A young film student in the early 80s becomes romantically involved with a complicated and untrustworthy man. Spoilers are ahead for Joanna Hogg's The Souvenir. This is going to be an interesting conversation. I'm genuinely curious to see what you think. I feel like this movie it just like splits us right down the middle in terms of like what one of us might really like and the other might not. I'm genuinely curious, very excited. We have lots of things to talk about before we talk about The Souvenir, though. I do just want to note that this was voted on by listeners. Again, we took to the streets. We took to the socials.
We did.
And we asked all of you wonderful listeners to hit us with some underrated A24 movies. And we wanted to know, like, what are your underrated A24 movies? Lots of good ones out there. We put 4 of them in a poll, and The Souvenir just flew away with it.
Landslide.
Lots of votes for The Souvenir. So that is what we are covering here on the episode, which is really exciting that we're going to cover something that you all want us to cover. We're very excited about that. First off, first order of business, Ben. Mr. Ben.
Here we go.
You watched Aftersun.
I did it.
And A24 had a screening room. We are both triple A24 members, so we got $10 tickets instead of $20 tickets. It was a one-night-only event. Give me your thoughts. I'm mentally preparing myself to either be very happy or very heartbroken. It's going to go one of two ways. And we have not talked about this. Let's clarify.
We have
You
not.
texted me last night and you were like, very excited to talk about it. I'm not even going to write my Letterboxd review because I don't want you to read what I have to say.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, it's like, listen, I want to write my review, but I'm not going to because I wanted to save it for the pod.
Right.
You know, the people want this content. They want to know.
Get it here first, exclusive.
Yeah. And I mean, I texted you too. Like, it was cool to finally listen to your episode with Callum, talking about it. He was super awesome. So, thanks to him for coming on. Okay. Here's my thoughts.
Oh, no.
No, I mean, overall, it's positive. Overall, it's very positive.
Okay. Good.
I like shot myself in the foot, I think, with this movie. And I think it's because I knew how much you loved it. So
sure. So I fucked it up for you. This was my fault.
No, I fucked it up. I want to take full responsibility here. But, I think it's fair to say that before you saw this movie, you and I were both like, Everything Everywhere is either the movie of the year or at least the A24 movie of the year. Right. And so like we were on the same wavelength with that. And then I don't remember where I saw it, but like you ranked this above Everything Everywhere. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay. That's huge. That's big. Like I don't know what movie I'd have to see to outrank that. So I unfortunately went into the movie, like rather than just like taking it in for what it is, I was just sitting there kind of critically watching it like, okay, so at one point in this is Ethan like, this is better than Everything Everywhere, which isn't fair. And I totally get that. But I was doing that to myself. I was like, okay, so when something's got to happen here, and that's just not that movie. It's not like nothing happens, but in the best way possible. So that was my problem. Like once it wrapped up, I was like, okay, like I know that was well done. I'm still kind of confused about why this got ranked above it, whatever. Sure. Fast forward to today, which is the day after I watched it. And I'm just like literally getting teary eyed at my desk thinking about it. Like it's a fucking beautiful movie.
We won.
Man.
We did it.
Like it's so good. Like once I could like step back from like trying to see it through your eyes or someone else's eyes and just like for what it is, like as a child of divorce who like saw my dad on vacation, like that's like a majority of the time we spent together. It was like either on the weekends or in the summer we'd go on a trip. So it was like fun dad, you know what I mean? Versus like being at home with mom kind of thing. So I related so much to this. Like we'd go to the hotel and the first thing I'd want to do is like, I got to go find the arcade. Cause like that's what they had back then, like in the 90s and shit. It's like these hotels like in Vegas, like, I mean, they still do, but like, that's what I would want to go do. So I'm watching this and I was like, so yeah, looking back on it, thinking about it today, I was like, fuck man, that was like such a good movie. It was such a touching movie. I watched it with my partner, Ashley, and we talked about it afterwards. It's just interesting, even throughout the movie, to have like a different interpretation on what is going on there, you know, with the father. You know, I for a while was like, oh, does he have like a terminal disease like cancer, and he knows this is the last trip he's going to have with her, so that's why he's emotional. And she, you know, read it more of just like the mental illness, depression stuff, which I think is probably the more accurate read. But I was just like, you know, I think when he took a phone call or something, I was like, oh, maybe he just got bad news or whatever, you know. But I think the straight up depression is definitely like more the correct read on it. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, it's great. And then obviously listening to you guys talk about it, like, yeah, it's not a movie where really anything happens at all, but that's not what it's about. You know, it's about reflecting on the time together, and, you know, like the flashing in the club scene, like that is kind of confusing the entire movie. And then like, it's the last fucking shot ties it together. It's like, God damn, man, they pulled that off. Like that was really good, you know, like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, again, like this is all on me, but I just went in there. It's like, man, why does Ethan like this better? I got to find out why this is better. You know what I mean? And I didn't just go, I feel like I would have been crying next to you seeing it for the first time, you know, just for what it was. Cause I was like, oh, like, I mean, obviously I wasn't a young girl, but I was a young boy, like in these very similar situations. And so I was like relating to a lot of this, like, you know, my father growing up was undiagnosed bipolar. Like there's just all this kind of stuff that I was like seeing in this movie. I'm like, holy shit, this is like, it's kind of intense to watch. So yeah, as I thought about it the day after being today, I was like, man, that really got me more than I thought. I just needed to like not look at it from that lens. So honestly, I'm very excited to watch it for a second time now that I know what it is, you know, and what to expect, and just like take it in for what they were trying to get across. So I was super into it. Last night I would have had a different review, so I'm glad I had 24 hours to sit with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'm glad you had 24 hours to sit with it. I'm very grateful for that. I think it's really, I think you touched on a really important thing, that like this movie is so like kind of tender, and like it seeps into you. It doesn't hit you all at once necessarily. So this was my third time watching it, and I feel like I cried more this time than I did the first or the second time. And I watched it with my partner as well. Molly watched it, and we had a conversation about it afterwards. And I think it's really fascinating, the perspective that you come into the movie as being the child. I come into the perspective of I'm the dad, because I do have two daughters. And so Paul Mescal's performance in this is absolutely obliterating to me, of like every single second that passes, he's conscious on some level that he's never getting her childhood back the way that he knew it. And he's never being able to have that same relationship that he did at one point have with her. And especially in that final scene, I know Callum and I talked about it on the pod, but like, I'm never going to listen to Under Pressure in the same way in my entire life ever again.
And the mix in the movie where they like take out the music and it's just the vocals there at the very end. Oh.
Oh my God.
Listening to Freddie Mercury's voice and nothing else. Like, oh, they are really hitting it home, but really well, you know?
Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. Okay. I'm really glad that you watched it. 100% respectable and understandable that it's not above everything everywhere. I think that's kind of a hot take. I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing that. I would say at this moment in time, my top 3 of 2022 is Aftersun at number 1, and actually Tar at number 2, and then Everything Everywhere at number 3. I'm very excited to rewatch Everything Everywhere. You and I will be performing a rewatch soon. We won't talk any details, but we will be rewatching that again. So I'm excited to see how that shakes out. And yeah, this movie is excellent. So word to the listener, A24, sign up for their emailing list, go to their website, become an AAA24 member. Like, it's $5 a month. You get half off these screening room tickets. And I'm a huge fan of the screening room. We've both partaken in the screening room previously on other films. And it's great. It's awesome. Like, you can't really see this movie anywhere else right now. And it's kind of out of theaters, and it's a very slim release at that. So, and it's not in physical form yet. So this was excellent. Okay. I'm really glad that you finally watched it. We can close that chapter of our of our unresolved friendship now that we've talked about this.
Back on track.
We have a couple more things to talk about before the Souvenir. Briefly, we got another official trailer for The Whale. This is actually an official trailer. This is like 2 minutes long. We get more understanding of what is going on and more performance from everybody in the film. We see Sadie Sink actually like say words, and we get an idea of what is going on. Gut-wrenching scenes in the trailer, really pretty heartbreaking. We're going to be covering it on the pod here next week when it does release. Where are your excitement levels? How do you feel? How do you feel about this trailer? How do you feel about the movie? Because it's starting to get a little divisive. People were really high on it at first, and now that more people are seeing it, I'm seeing that more people are kind of split on this film.
I mean, I'm still really excited about it. I think, among everything, it's just like my desire to see Brendan Fraser on the big screen again.
100%.
That's what I'm really excited about. Like, I feel like I can take into context, people are talking about with like the fat phobia, all that kind of stuff. Like, and I get that, but I also feel like he's the kind of person that wouldn't take on a project with any sort of malintent behind it. I think he, from what I understand, he did a lot of, kind of research and stuff, like how people that are morbidly obese, like, live, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like it was done with respect. I enjoy Aronofsky. I think, I feel on the outs of society when I say that I think Mother is fantastic. Like I really, I really enjoy his movies quite a bit. So I am curious to see how this one goes, because I don't think he's ever like adapted. I don't know if he's adapted much of anything. Obviously, Noah from the Bible, but I don't know especially this play, which is a whole different kind of medium, where you're kind of tied down to a few locations for the most part, and it can be done really well. Like if you've seen 12 Angry Men or Glengarry Glen Ross, like plays can get adapted into movies and be fantastic. And I think Aronofsky obviously has it in him, but I'm just curious to see what this is like. But mainly I'm just here for Brendan and like his return. I'm hoping he gets some recognition. I was kind of surprised to some extent to see that the Globes nominated him given their history. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. And then, hopefully if this performance is everything people are saying it is, it'll be cool to see him nominated for an Oscar.
It'll be really interesting as well. And talking Golden Globes, they absolutely made some very bad nominations when it came to directors and other things that they just didn't fulfill. No women directors. In a year of Sarah Polley directing women talking, like what are we doing? Here's the thing with Darren Aronofsky, and I know we've talked about this a couple times. I'm like split. I'm like 50-50 on Aronofsky films. Requiem for a Dream is iconic. We all know that it's very important to kind of his filmography. I'm pro The Wrestler. I think The Wrestler is actually quite good. And I love Mickey Rourke in it. I'm very pro on Black Swan. Love that film. Think Natalie Portman's great. She was nommed for it, which is huge. So again, Aronofsky knows how to get people nominated, and he obviously knows how to campaign that well. I didn't see Noah, and here's my little short story on Noah. Way back in the day, so it came out in 2014. So back in 2014, I called into a radio station back when I don't know if you still do this stuff, but they were like playing on the radio, and they're like, "Yo, if you want to win tickets to a movie, you got to call, like, it'd be caller number like 8 or whatever." And I called in, and I was the caller, and they were like, "Listen, you have to say what, like, our slogan or whatever it is, right? Like, And I literally, and so this was 2014. So this was 9 years ago. So I was like a little man boy, and I was super not confident, and I could not say it for the life of me. Like, I kept fucking it up over the phone, and they were like, no, you gotta say, because they gotta play it on air. They're like, you gotta say this right, you gotta get this right. Finally I said like something passable, and they're like, all right, cool, kind of like come down to our HQ, pick up your movie tickets, whatever. I went down, I picked them. They were like physical movie tickets, and they had a big like poster on the movie tickets. They were big for Noah, and I never saw the movie, never went to go see it. I just absolutely spaced, and I had free tickets, and I just didn't do it.
That's amazing.
So I don't know if I was subconsciously like, Aronofsky is not the guy. So I don't know. Maybe that was it. Mother, I'm very anti Mother, and then the Whale. We'll see what happens with the Whale. I love the trailer. I think it's great, and I think it was really smart of them to put in that last 10 seconds of Fraser. actually crying, actually losing it, actually demonstrating why you want to go see this movie is because you want to see him back in action.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched his Actors on Actors with Adam Sandler.
Oh yeah.
My God, incredible stuff. Just an A1 first rate kind of a guy. Really excited to see him campaign. And if A24 is in a pickle here, because if they didn't have everything everywhere this year, they would throw it all behind the whale, which I think is a very interesting situation in terms of their awards bids, because Everything Everywhere is going to kind of capture a full round of nominations, while this is much more specific in terms of possibly adapted or Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how they campaign him. I'm really interested. Either way, I'm excited. We're going to cover it on the pod. We're going to be on it, and I can't wait because we've been waiting for this movie forever.
It feels like it's been announced for a super long time. So yeah, I'm very, very excited. Speaking of the Actors on Actors, and that line that he says, like, there are no underdogs, just champions who haven't been recognized or whatever it is. Like,
so good.
Fuck, dude. Like, dude. That's like, you say that to yourself in the mirror every morning. He's like, yeah, you're right. There are no underdogs. Like, dude, he just seems like such a genuine guy. I'm excited for him.
He gets it. He understands the assignment. Last order of business. We got an official poster for Ari Aster's next film. This was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it is now titled Beau is Afraid. So the poster looks like a child. I would assume his name is Beau. That's not really given. And it's got Joaquin Phoenix's name fucking plastered. Really, really
It looks
big.
like that's the name of the movie.
It does. It looks like the title of the film. And then really small in the left-hand corner, it says Beau is Afraid. Name of the movie used to be Disappointment Boulevard. Give me your take. Better now or worse?
No, I feel like I live on Disappointment Boulevard now with this new title.
Yeah, we do.
This is like, what is this title? Especially from someone who, like, my love for Midsommar is no surprise on this pod.
Yeah.
Like, I love Hereditary. I love Midsommar. There's some silly part of me. It's like, yeah, I want Ari Aster to do one name titles, whatever.
Sure.
I was like, okay, Disappointment Boulevard. I can get down with that. But this one to me is just like, Beau is Afraid. Like, that just...
It's bad. It's a bad
like
title.
it feels like they reversed the working title and what the actual title is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's kind of what it feels like, where it's like, what was Star Wars? Was it like Blue Harvest or something is what the working title was? And then it was actually like Star Wars.
Star
like
Wars.
It needs to be the other way around, like this needs to be called Disappointment Boulevard. But I don't know. Like, obviously I'm excited to see what happens here. We're both going to be here for it. I think in some of the few sneak peeks, like, paparazzi pictures, Joaquin Phoenix is in these like same PJs, but as like an older disgruntled guy. So I'm curious, like, what kind of role these PJs play, because it sounded like he's like
interesting
in these. So I don't know. And then Ari Aster is just Ari Aster, man. I'm ready for it.
He's back.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. Disappointment Boulevard, far better film name. For just immeasurably better than Beau is Afraid. I hate to break it to Ari Aster and A24. They fucked that one up. We are the smart ones. Come on. So I think it's a bad name change. Word on the street is from people that have screened it or have had, kind of working screeners, I guess, as they go, as they're working on the film. It is Ari Aster's most fucked up film to date. Apparently it is just unhinged, unreal. Ari Aster's in his bag. So your day is coming, Ben. We are here. We are going to celebrate.
That's crazy to me that he's going to be able to top Toni Collette sawing her own head off with a piano wire.
Unbelievable.
Like,
fuck. I forgot about that scene, dude. Oh my God.
That is nuts to me. I mean, also, isn't the runtime right now like 3 hours? And there's like,
dude,
he
it's
says
like
there's like a
3
4
and a
hour.
half.
Yeah. And he has like a 4 or 5 hour cut that he could put out.
This is the thing. A24 puts out director's cut on their shop all the time. So give us the director's cut. We're living in the era of director's cuts, honestly, because Baz Luhrmann is out here and he's like, yo, we could have made a 7-hour Elvis movie. And everybody's like, let's see it.
I want the 7-hour
Give
Elvis
it
movie.
to us.
Austin Butler, man. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, A24, big things, lots of things in the news, very exciting stuff. That was fun. Let's talk about The Souvenir. This is the movie of the week. Tilda Swinton and her real-life daughter are in this movie, which I think is really fascinating. I just got done watching it. You watched it this afternoon. This is both of our first times seeing this movie. I knew essentially nothing about it. I knew that it's The Souvenir Part 2, and then The Eternal Daughter. Just came out this year. and that was Amanda's 5th best movie of the year on the Big Picture. And I was like, yo, that might be pretty good. And so this is the first to that entry. I want to know what you thought of The Souvenir, Ben.
Okay. Let's start out with Honor Swinton-Byrne. Like, she does such a good job. She's fantastic.
Yes.
I think this is really kind of her first definitely leading role. She only has one other credit before this with a movie called I Am Love, which Tilda Swinton also is in, directed by Luca Guadagnino.
Whoa.
So I haven't seen that. I don't know how huge that role is, but I feel like this is definitely her first like leading role. And I think she did a really good job. I think this movie is intentionally very slow. Like it is really slow, but like I don't know, overall I had a good time with it. I think it was good. I think it just definitely felt like a little bit of a year in the life of kind of thing. Like I don't know, like there aren't necessarily huge things that happen, you know. It felt very confined to like this apartment for the most part, then occasionally on like the sets for her film. But I think the acting was really good. I'm a big fan of Richard Ayoade, so I was happy to see him on there for a little bit. But yeah, it's like a very familiar vibe of just like being in your 20s and like going to someone's house and like hanging out there, you know, like it kind of begins with that. It's like, oh yeah, this looks very familiar, just you know, going to hang out. And then as the relationship kind of develops and just seeing what she's putting up with this guy. And I don't know, I know we're going to go over the scenes later on, but there's definitely like a moment in this movie where things switch for me anyway. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Like, and they also switch for the character, you know, they also switch for Julie. So I don't know. I thought it was good. I'm curious to see where they go, knowing this is like kind of part of a trilogy. You know, there's definitely a Souvenir Part 2 and then, you know, Eternal Daughter. So I hope we'll cover the next one because I kind of want to see where it goes. But I don't know. It was an interesting thing to think about, this being the vote by everybody for the underrated pick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay, cool, because there's so many options. And yeah, I don't know what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really interesting because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is what everybody voted on. I think this is interesting because I remember looking on Rotten Tomatoes. I was like half an hour into the movie, and I got to be honest with you, I was like not vibing with it. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me. I've heard good things. Like I know Joanna Hogg is a very good director. I know that this is supposed to be a great movie, but I'm just like not feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I looked on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like an 87, 88 or something, certified fresh by critics. It's like, okay. Cool. I get that. I can understand that. Very well shot, very technically sound. Yeah, very slow burn on purpose, very meticulous, very tender, very unassuming. And then you look at the audience score, it's like 32% rotten. And it's like, wow. that checks out. That really checks out because like this does not seem like an audience's movie. This does seem kind of like a critic's film. And I know it did premiere at Sundance, and people were pretty high on it when it did come out at Sundance. I agree with you that I think Honor Swinton-Byrne is really good in this movie. I am curious, and I wanted to know, so as I watched the movie, more things inevitably start to happen. We start to get a little deeper, a little bit more intense. But I think even when so I had to stop at 30 minutes and go about my day, go back to work and watch my kids. And then I was able to wrap it up the back 90 minutes tonight, just before we recorded. And I found myself really kind of getting more entranced the more the movie went on.
Okay.
And I really kind of pictured myself losing interest, and I did not do that. And I don't know if that's because I had a double shot of espresso at 7 p.m. or if I was genuinely interested in the film. But I'm curious, as the movie went along, did you find yourself more engaged? Did you enjoy it more as it progressed, or did you just kind of like remain constant of your feelings?
No, it definitely got more interesting as it went along. Like obviously this is, as I said at the beginning, this is a spoiler pod, so if you haven't seen it, you know, just fair warning to you. But obviously yeah. But obviously the dinner scene when the guy's like, oh yeah, he's a heroin addict, you know, and she's like,
yes,
wait,
let's
what?
talk about
you
it.
know, like that's when it's like, oh, okay.
Oh shit.
Now this is interesting because this guy kind of has like a second life, a secret identity kind of thing. Cause he comes across, it's very like pompous, like working for I forget what department, but foreign affairs or something.
Yeah. Foreign affairs, I think.
And just like, super smart and intelligent, whatever. But then, once that happens, you kind of pick up on the fact that he's always asking for 10 quid as he leaves, he's just like, man, for a guy who like comes like presents himself a certain way, like it doesn't necessarily batch up. And hearing, like again, like Richard Ayoade, when he's like, I'm curious how this thing, like how your relationship, I think you said tessellates or something like that.
Yes.
Which I had to look up that word. Like, what the fuck does that mean? But
educate me, Ben. What does it mean? Because I didn't look it up.
I guess it's used like in a pattern where there could be like a pattern that can kind of like repeat itself. So like it's I guess like maybe you see it a lot like in tiles, and then you can like stack them around, but it's like a pattern that connects with no gap. So that's the other definition, is basically like when things come together without any sort of gap in between them or any space in between them. So that's, I think, what he's saying is like, there doesn't seem like you guys seem to be kind of glued together, but I have no idea how you guys belong together given that he's a heroin addict. So I got to figure out how to start dropping tessellate in my
you got to work that into the vocab,
dude. I know, so I guess like you and I, our relationship is now, probably not going to use it right, but now that I've seen Aftersun, our relationship is a tessellate relationship.
Absolutely. We tessellate.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely picked up from that moment on. And you kind of keep your eyes on that character a little bit more now to kind of pick up on what those things are. And it obviously, like, his physical behavior even ramps up as the movie goes on. So you can't help but understand that. But I could totally see, like, I honestly would have understood if you were like, dude, I'm half an hour in. I don't know if I can finish this.
I don't know if we're doing this.
I get it, man. Like, it's like nothing's happening yet. Nothing's going on. And it's very much that. So I think that's why I'm so curious too, to like pick up with part 2, because I'm hoping, it picks up where we left at part 1, which is like with some momentum.
Yes, and I believe that part 2 has a far better audience score. So I'm genuinely curious. Have you watched a trailer for part 2? Do you know anything about part 2? Do you even know the logline? Like, do you know what it's?
I don't know anything about it.
I know nothing about it. What do you think is going to happen? And this is hysterical for people that have seen part 2 or know of part 2. This is a great exercise for us who are just oblivious to what part 2 entails. What do you think? Like, what you mentioned, we have momentum. She walks out of that kind of airline hangar, and essentially it's told to us that her world has opened up a bit. She feels like she is kind of free, a little more unleashed. What do you think's gonna happen? Where do you think we're going part 2?
I don't know. Does she leave to like? I mean, I don't know if we're ever clear if she's like pursuing an undergraduate or like a master's in film or something like that. But it's like, was that like signifying that she's done with that? Now that he's not there anymore. It's like, are we going on to like her going somewhere else now in a pursuit of like a master's, but still like kind of then writing her story? Because that's what everyone keeps telling her the whole movie. It's just like, write what you know. That's what I was told too.
Right,
like,
from your experience. Yeah,
exactly. Like, I got a film degree, and like that's the first thing I told when I was in a screenwriting class. Like, just write what you know. That's gonna be the easiest thing to do.
Interesting.
And it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I know my story, so that's kind of what you do. And it was interesting to hear that in this movie, where it's like, why are you writing out this like Tony dude? Like, you should focus on your thing. So maybe that's what happens. Maybe kind of shifts more into that. I don't know. I'm curious, but I say let's lock it in for 2023 at some point. Let's check out part 2.
We'll definitely do Souvenir part 2. I am curious because we get that final monologue from one of the students that's being filmed. I'm curious if this kind of world and this idea of filmmaking has in some way been soured by Antony and by the relationship and that kind of toxicity that she's encountered. I wonder if she cannot separate those two things. So I wonder if she steps out and kind of goes in a different direction because of that. I guess we'll see what happens to her. Let's do true cinema moments, because we're kind of talking into them. You mentioned it. It's not really a movie about moments. It's an overarching like year in the life. Like things just happen. There's not necessarily a lot of the things we cover on the spot were like when this person died, or like, at the end of Killing of a Sacred Deer when they all get shot. Like these crazy moments that you can easily define.
He skates off the top of the school roof. Like there's like moments, the things that happen. Yeah.
Exactly. This is a little bit more difficult. So we'll just kind of go through this and and see where we land on all of these. I did want to put the first conversation with Antony in here because this is obviously their first interaction. He does pay for lunch, which I think is very interesting. Kind of ropes her into this world, believing that she might have money, or he might have money, and he pushes back on her and really challenges her in her filmmaking ideas. I know I specifically wrote down that he says, "We don't just want to see a life lived out in film," which I think is very funny, very meta.
Yeah.
I think this movie is exceptionally meta when it comes to film and how you tell stories, because that's literally what we are watching. Any thoughts, feelings on this first interaction between her and Antony?
It was just so interesting because we don't have any context for who she's talking to. So I think like I went into it thinking she was talking to like either a professor or like professor's assistant, like kind of getting critique on her film, on her script. And then you find out like, no, he's just some dude who's like offering his like man's opinion, you know. It's like, well, what makes them more interesting to me? She's like, no, they're not more interesting. They're just like, you know,
are they even real? Yeah,
exactly.
Like bullshit. Yeah,
I was like, what is going on here? Then they find out like, oh no, I just work for the Foreign Affairs Office. Like, oh, this is just some guy. Like that was so weird to me. It caught me off guard.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's important to the movie. I believe that is important because I think it sets up a really interesting dynamic between them of her kind of like fast falling for someone like this, and her kind of coming of age story in that regard of really becoming intertwined quite quickly into a relationship that she doesn't really know a lot about. I wanted to put this next one on here because I feel like this is kind of the first moment that we see their relationship kind of take to the next level. Antony goes to Paris, brings her back some very fancy clothes, and then she, you know, gives him a BJ, and they get to town, and they are now engulfed in this physical cycle of what is to come. And this is kind of the first moment for that. Did you see this coming? Did you know that this is where the relationship had to go, like this early in the movie?
No, not necessarily. I didn't know exactly where this was going to go. You know, there's a scene a little bit before that where they kind of joke about her taking up over half the space of the bed. You know, like kind of builds the wall like with the stuffed animals and stuff. And even then I was like, is this a romantic thing? Like I know they're in a bed together, but I still can't tell like where this is going exactly. So then he brings back that, you know, lingerie from Paris, and everything obviously just like really escalates. I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. But it kind of felt like as we get to know the character, it's like, you know, to kind of make the correlation with the heroin use, it's to like give them the first bit for free and then they get hooked and then they'll like start paying for it kind of thing. So he's like, I'll pay for our meal. I'll give you gifts. Like I'll get her emotionally attached to me because then she can financially support me later, you know, when she's like hooked, so to speak. So it kind of felt very obviously like manipulative and stuff. Like maybe it was sincere. I don't know, but that was my read on it.
Yeah, I am curious, and I'm kind of pondering this and trying to think about this myself. What is necessarily the single draw that Julie sees in Antony, right? Like what draws her to that? I am curious if you have anything to add, but I think really naturally it's that kind of, you mentioned that like kind of cocaine addiction, like heroin addiction style of like I give you just a little bit of what you need from time to time, and you know what that tastes like, and then you just keep coming back from it. So he challenges her and pushes her to think more, you know, whether it be smarter or not, in different ways about what she's doing in the films that she's making and how she's experiencing her life, and then praises her very seldomly, but she adores that. She lives for that. And I think that is kind of that one key thing that just keeps her in this cycle. She just wants that approval from him continually. Did you see anything else in that relationship that kind of kept her coming back?
No, I mean, I was kind of confused by that, especially towards the end. I was like, why does she keep letting him come back? You know, we have, I'm sure we'll talk about later, but like that, you know, kind of meeting up at the restaurant, whatever, that there was a point when, you know, she kicks him out. I'm like, okay, good. That's it. You know, like she even brings her friends back over. I'm like, okay, she didn't like this at the time at the beginning of the movie, you know, it's kind of draining. It's understandable, but now she's experienced something worse. And so she's happy just to have this back, you know? And so then the fact that she brought him back in again, I was like, okay, I don't know what the draw is here at all. So yeah, I don't know.
It's that familiarity too. Like she knows that relationship. She knows him, and she knows how to operate with him, whether it be good or bad. So I think that's part of it. Lending Antony money, that to me was the first sign. I was like, hey, this guy's up to no good. This guy's getting up to some dirty business. Because he initially asked for like $6, and then he's like, you know what? Just make it 10 to be safe. And I was like, dude, can we like really? And I did feel like Julie was being a little like non-self-aware, a little immature about what his intentions might be and what he might be after. But again, she could have just been kind of like, lost in this state of illusion of love or lust for him. But I think that's an interesting telltale sign in the beginning. The film dinner conversation. This is what you mentioned. I like it for 2 reasons. Number one, this is the big meta scene of the movie of like, there are no rules in filmmaking. You write about what you know about and you can do anything you want. And people who go to film school think that they have it all figured out and that they need to do things a certain way, but in reality you don't. So I like that meta text quite a lot. And then this is when we find out that Antony is a habitual heroin user and she's just absolutely not tracking. I want to know from your perspective, is she not tracking because she literally doesn't understand what he's saying? Or is she choosing to like shut off at that moment and just say like, I don't understand what you're talking about, while she's trying to process in her own mind?
I honestly think she's just like, I guess, flabbergasted, for like a lack of a better word. I think she just like, she got hit with a ton of bricks. Like, wait, what? Like this guy I'm sharing my house with, like she had no signs that was a thing that's happening. And again, the Iwadi character talks about it so flippantly and just like with such ease that I don't think he has any idea that she doesn't know. It's like, well, yeah, obviously, like he's a heroin user. You don't even do drugs, like that's so crazy. Yeah. How do you guys like connect together? And just continues to talk about it, not picking up at all on her like body language of like, what are you saying? So I think it was just really just kind of like didn't know, I can't compute, kind of like, brain stopped working kind of thing. Just like, hold on, I didn't process that. That's kind of how I read it. Yeah, absolutely. We then kind of get this kind of quick succession of 3 things that are really all intertwined. Number one, we get what seems to be a robbery in her house. All of her things are gone. Her equipment is gone. Antony is there. He's also crying, calling the cops. Like, it seems like a genuine kind of heartbreaking moment for both of them living together. Then we dive right into this kind of half-sex scene. We know that they are very much kind of sensually engaged with one another. And they go back to that physical necessity for one another. And then immediately after that, we take a hard cut to them arguing about him stealing her things and lying about it. So he did it to fuel what I would take to fuel his heroin addiction. And then in this scene, which really is smart, is well done, is very important narratively, drove me up a fucking wall, is that she thinks that she's the problem. She's like, I'm so sorry. There are things you just shouldn't tell me. I understand that now, and it's okay, and I'm so sorry. And I was like, Julie, you deserve so much better than this, baby. Yeah. Come on. And it was driving me crazy. Yeah, I mean, he's just like this. It was a scene of gaslighting. It's like what we watched,
100%. Yeah,
where it's like, oh, I had to do it. Like, we wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't done it.
It was an emergency situation.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Fuck out of here.
And like, I mean, if you pay attention to when that scene happens, like right after the robbery, he's like, I'll call the cops, and then he goes off screen, picks up the phone receiver, then just like slams it down 4 seconds later and just yells fuck. So it's like, he didn't call the cops because he obviously knew what he did, but he tells her like, I'll take care of it, don't worry. And then like kind of goes through the motion, but doesn't actually do anything. And then just like, gets her emotions riled up of like, oh fuck, I wish I could have done something, like whatever. And like, man, that was a great way to like skirt around that, because then like she's not thinking about like, hey, you didn't talk to the cops, it's just like more focus on what's happening there. And then to bring it up later and then just totally gaslight her into being like, I had to do it. I had to like sell your stuff. I'm like, dude, this is that again. Like, there's just so many scenes, not to that extent, but there's just other scenes, which is like, this should have been it. Like, this should have been like,
this should have been the moment. Yeah.
Nope, we're done. And then it's just like, oh no, next scene we're on the way to Berlin. We're on the train together. It's like, holy shit, what?
Yeah, absolutely, just wild stuff. And there were multiple times out loud where I was like, this guy's such an asshole. This guy is he's the worst. He's so terrible. Comes home to a random man. I wanted to put this one in here because I thought this, again, a moment where it's like, okay, this is it. We're pretty much done. I'm coming home to a random apparent heroin user in my home that is friends with Anthony, and just out of nowhere. And I do think that Julie's response and Honor Swinton Byrne as the actress is really, really good in this moment. She escalates so quickly, but it's under so many layers that she's trying to feel everything all at once and hide how she really wants to deal with the situation, but she can't help to explode on some level that is a lot for her as her person. And at this moment I was like, okay, we gotta make some changes. Anthony's got to get out of this house.
This has got to be it. Yeah. It's a really interesting emotional scene, just in that panic of like, oh, there's a druggie, there's a user on my stairs right now, and getting him to finally leave. And then like shortly after, kind of a funny moment where he knocks, he's like, I forgot my coat.
That was so funny.
It was played with a little bit of levity, which was kind of cool. But yeah, I think, isn't that the first time though when she's like, get out, like you have to leave now? Like I think right after that is when she says that to him.
I think so.
So that's when the first line is drawn. It's like, I can't have strangers in my house that I don't know about. Like you can't be opening this up for these people. So yeah, it was a great scene.
Yeah, and then obviously breaks her heart to tell him to get out and to leave, and that's a really emotional scene. And I think that's where Hogg is so technically proficient and sound in identifying how she kind of elevates those emotions in each character through kind of those closing doors of the elevator, and the double doors of the elevator I think is very important. Lots of good stuff in there. A couple more. Anthony has withdrawals in her house. This is probably like the most intense the movie gets, I think, in terms of like physical kind of like visual styling. And Julie is just fucking decimated in the corner. I'm going to tell you right now, this is my true cinema moment. Because then I, at this moment, I was like, oh my God, like I think it clicked for me. I was like, this is exceptionally toxic. And they both adore each other, and they don't want there's just like so many complex layers to it. And this was a great moment for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I don't think like that makes complete sense for this to be your pick. Like such a powerful scene. Definitely, this is the kind of stuff that you wouldn't have predicted happening an hour late or hour earlier when you're watching this movie. You're like, what is going, like, this is so slow. And then, fast forward to this, like, oh shit, okay, we're going to end up here at some point. Like, all right, this might be slow burn, but I'm here to get there, and it totally pays off.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention here, actually, I guess there's two more things. Julie's mom, Tilda Swinton, offers to stay up and kind of look out for Anthony while she goes to bed, which I think is very important for her character in continually caring for Julie through this heartbreak, through the constant calls from Barbara, which we assume, I guess, is Anthony's mom. I would assume, kind of on the other end of the line, like always calling and asking about Anthony and trying to figure out like where he is and is he safe and all of these things. And then the worst happened, literally. And I think that's really smart screenwriting for Julie's mom to just say, it's what we feared. It's the worst. And we know what that means. And we know what we've devolved to. Did you think that he was going to die? Because I did not. I did not see. I thought that we were going to like take a hard cut at some point at a very pivotal moment in their relationship and like a rock bottom situation. Yeah. And that's where part 2 would have gone. Obviously not the case. And Anthony's a very one movie character.
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't know that I knew this was going to happen in this movie. Like you said, I felt like, it was going to happen at some point. It felt inevitable, but it did kind of feel like it wouldn't happen here. I thought part 2 was going to be more about like the second half of this relationship, whatever. So, no, I didn't realize it was going to happen here. But, again, that's, I think, what makes part 2 even more interesting now. It's like, where do we go from here? This is really good. But that line delivery from Tilda of just like the worst, just like, oh man, that's such a complete way to convey this with the shortest amount of words, for sure.
Yeah, because it is so much more impactful than him dying. Like it literally, like it is the worst for every single person involved in this situation. So it really is the worst, which I think is really important. I said my true cinema moment. What are you going with, Ben?
I mean, mine's the dinner conversation, when she finds out that he's a heroin user. Like, it's just, for me, it's the 1-2 punch again of Richard Ayoade. And then also just like seeing the character of Julie, like trying to process this information in real time, while the conversation continues to go on. So that's mine.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. We've got just one A1 act this week. We're doing Tilda Swinton. She's not in this movie a ton, but she is the person in this movie with probably the biggest CV that we can cover the most amount of things for.
Yeah.
And she's a big deal. So we're gonna talk about Tilda Swinton. We have got Vanilla Sky, which is crazy. I don't remember her being in Vanilla Sky, and I love that movie. Do you? I don't know what character does she play.
I haven't watched that in a while, so I don't remember which character she is.
That movie fucking bangs. If people are looking for a good movie, go watch Vanilla Sky. Apparently it's very divisive. It is based off of a Spanish film, so it's technically a remake, but it's very good. It's excellent Tom Cruise business. Michael Clayton.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Michael Clayton, Burn After Reading, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, We Need to Talk About Kevin, Moonrise Kingdom, Snowpiercer, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Hail Caesar, Doctor Strange, Okja. She is in Uncut Gems. She is the voice of the auction house owner on the phone.
Oh.
That is worth mentioning.
Interesting.
Uncredited, I believe, but her IMDb has it. So that's interesting. The French Dispatch, Memoria, 3,000 Years of Longing, The Souvenir Part 2, obviously The Souvenir, The Eternal Daughter, and Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which just came out a week or two ago. Cool. She's on a lot of stuff, dude. What are we taking? What are you going with?
She's got a lot. I mean, a couple of things I want to shout out. Like, she is, I really like her a lot as the Ancient One. I know that was really divisive when that movie came out, but I thought she was like super cool casting for that. Obviously, anything with Wes Anderson is great. I hear great things about the new Suspiria as well. But for me, if Michael Clayton's on a list, I'm picking Michael Clayton. Like, I love that movie so much.
I still haven't seen that movie.
You got it. Like, I picked it for the other pod, 3 films. Like, I picked it for my most recent Unsung Gem because I'm like, I just, that movie's so good. It is such a powerhouse, like, performance and acting. And she's kind of going toe to toe with Clooney for the whole movie in a way. And she is wonderful. So, anyone listening to this that hasn't seen Michael Clayton, please check it out. Ethan.
This guy right here, me. Something popped up on my Twitter feed the other day where someone was like, look what I found in the wild. And it was a yard sign. And you know those yard signs that are like, in this house.
Ashley got one for me.
In this house, well, like, we support like all, we support Black Lives Matter and feminism is for everybody and all this kind of stuff. But it goes, in this house, we believe that Michael Clayton is a modern day masterpiece and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, I feel like this is a sign. I feel like I need to watch
sign.
Literally, I feel like this is a sign. I need to watch Michael Clayton. So it's on the short list. I gotta watch it, dude. I gotta watch it. I did watch Ticket to Paradise the other night. Have you seen Ticket to Paradise?
Dude, I meant to text you about it. We watched it the same night. Like,
shit, really?
Unknowingly, yeah. Like,
Let's go.
I had a great time with that movie, man. That's exactly what I wanted.
Delightful. It was so delightful. Anyway, talking of Clooney, I thought he was great in that film. It is so good. Solid 3-star movie of 2022, but it is delightful. I watched it with my mother-in-law. We just had a blast. I'm going to be honest with you. It was so much fun.
If you give me Clooney and Roberts on the screen together, like, I'm on board.
I need a part 2. I need Ticket to Paradise Part 2, Living in Paradise. That's what I need. And I think it's warranted. And this movie made like $100 million at the box office. We deserve that, if anything.
Yeah, like, we got Meet the Parents and Meet the Fockers and whatever. Like, give me Ticket to Paradise too.
Come on, people.
Ticket to Paradise. There you go. Title's already figured out.
Figured it out. We did it. Yes. Oh, God. It'd be so dumb if that didn't happen. Let's see. I think this is interesting because I was thinking about the A1 Act, and, I generally go with movies that I like, and I know that really kind of defeats the purpose. Like, it's an A1 Act for Tilda Swinton. It's not for, like, what movie is my favorite movie. So I'm gonna go. Oh, this is I'm gonna go with Moonrise Kingdom. Honestly, I think that movie slaps. I think she's really good in that movie, and she's just part of an elite cast as well, which is really good. I do want to see 3,000 Years of Longing, even though I heard it wasn't super great. I'm still interested. And my backup pick is going to be Snowpiercer because she's really unnerving in that film.
Yeah, that's a great
really
movie.
creepy. And I think she is the person that is like part of the shoe scene where like they throw a guy's shoe out the window and she like kind of mans that scene. And it's really, really, really intense. Okay, our A24 ranking, we have A through F24. Before you rank it, Ben, I do have a real question for you here. So there's a couple movies that I've watched recently that I don't necessarily love, but I respect. And I understand the high ratings that lots of people are giving them, the 4 stars and the 4.5 stars. How do you personally decide, I loved this movie, but it just wasn't, or I loved this movie and it was really great, or, you know what, this movie wasn't for me, but I respect it. It's very technically sound. It's got a great screenplay. That in itself deserves a high rating. How do you kind of differentiate between like love for a movie and respect for a film?
I feel like, are you subtweeting me about the Batman right now? Is
Absolutely not. No, not even close. You're subtweeting yourself. You did it yourself.
Because that's like a lot about how
I literally didn't even think about that. I swear to God, it has nothing to do with that.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it has to be taken into consideration, like the production behind making a movie. Like I can tell something, maybe isn't for me, but it was well done. You makes me think of the Hansel quote from Zoolander, like who's one of my heroes is Sting. Like I don't listen to his music, but like I know, like that's how I feel about like Bruce Springsteen. Like I don't listen to his music, but I understand why people love him. But it's it's just not for me. So I would never say he's bad, but like I'm not going to give him 5 stars because I don't listen to him. So yeah, I think I feel like a honest person at least takes that into consideration. There's bad movies and there's movies that just like don't work for you, but you understand that it's technically sound, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think I'm asking because of the Batman, of course, and I am asking also because of this movie. So I think I'm really caught in between those two situations. Like this movie, I think is really layered and nuanced and well made and very smart and tackles a very big subject in a very kind of nuanced and tender way. So I see the merit. Will I be watching this again? No. Am I going to recommend this to somebody? Probably not. Do I consider it one of the best underrated films of A24? I do not. I don't think so. And so I think I'm kind of splitting that difference of like I kind of just want to be like this. I don't know. It was a movie that I watched. Like it's fine. I'll put it on Letterboxd. And then like, okay, this is very, very impressive, very technically sound, very good all the way around. So I think personally, and we might revisit this next year. We'll revisit this when we do part 2 for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going with, and this might be a hot take. I'm going to go with a B-24 because I think it's good. I think it's solid. I think it's got a lot of merits. I think I think a lot of scenes that are good. It just wasn't up my alley. It was pretty slow. Wasn't a lot going down. Very introspective. Maybe I just wasn't in that mood tonight. So chalk it up to whatever you want. But I'm going with the B-24.
I think it makes total sense. We were talking earlier, like off the pod, about movies that we love that we know aren't great, which is kind of like the opposite of what this was. Like I love the movie Big Daddy. It's one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. But I'm aware that that's like a 1.5 star movie technically. Like it's not a good movie, but for me it's a 5-star movie, that kind of a thing. And this, this is that, but on the inverse. I'm like, I think it was well done, like well made. I enjoyed the shots. I enjoyed all the composition. Like we looked up some of the trivia. This was like set was built inside of an airplane hangar. I'm like, I didn't know. Like they did a great job with that, and obviously all the performances were really strong, but it was just like still just really slow. I was actually thinking about the same thing as a B-24, but I think I'm going to go with a C+24.
Okay. All right.
When I put it into the different tiers and stuff, I'm like, the B tier just feels too high for me, and a flat C-24 just seems like not necessarily disrespectful, but I'm like, it's not like the definition of mid, but it's just like a little bit better than that. So that's where I'm coming in, where it's like, the B tier right now seems too high. I have a feeling like Souvenir Part 2 will probably fall into the B tier if this continues where it's at. Like I'll enjoy it, it's great, but like you said, like I don't know when I'm going to revisit this at all. Every movie for the most part, every movie I ever watch, I'm glad I did. And this falls into that where it's like, I'm glad I checked it out. Like this is good. It's been on my list for a while. but I don't know that I'm ever going to revisit it, and it wouldn't fall in my top 10 recommendations for an A24 movie to somebody. So yeah, it falls C plus 24 for me.
Yeah, that's solid. I respect that. I think there is definitely a differentiation between like the B and the C tier. But I do think that there's a lot to chew on here, and I do think that the performances alone, at least for me, are pretty impressive and pretty dang good. Like if I went to go see this movie like in a small local theater, I would probably walk out being like, okay, that was really highbrow, and I don't think I understood all of it, but that was a fucking movie. Like that was cinema. Like that was of that level. So I love it. I love our ratings. And feels good. And this was a great time, Ben. This was a great
It really
pod.
was.
I will say we've got some really fun stuff. I know we teased this last week as well. We've got some fun stuff coming up in the pod. The schedule is looking really, really juicy. We gave a tease on Twitter. Go follow us on Twitter at 24 minutes of A24. Next week we're covering The Whale, if all goes according to plan. Hopefully that is the case, and we'll be back with another brand new A24 movie. And then after that, we can't talk about it. We got a surprise episode coming down. Should be exciting.
Like obviously we know what's going on, and I'm so
yeah, it's not a mystery to us.
I can't wait to do this. I'm hoping everyone else will be on board with us as well. Again, like thanks to everyone for your support and reaching out to us, like talking to you guys online. It's just some of the coolest shit. I love doing that. So thanks everyone for picking this movie for us. It was honestly, it was good to watch. I'm really glad that we did. I'm looking forward to getting into part 2 next year. But let us know what you thought of what we thought about The Souvenir. I also want to hear what you guys think about The Souvenir, like why this one won in a landslide. Like hit us up, let us know. We are, as Ethan said, on Twitter and Instagram at 24 minutes of A24. And also we're on YouTube, so you can see us talk about this. You can subscribe to us.
You can see my new orange beanie. I got a brand new orange beanie you can look at.
It looks very sharp.
I just made crooked all of a sudden.
I love it. I got my Empire Records shirt on tonight.
Thank you, sir.
So go check us out. Thanks again, everyone, for your support. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. Spring break forever, bitches.